Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a real pleasure to give you this update on what's been happening at Gander Gold. This session is focused more for people who are new either to the Gander Gold story or new to the Central Newfoundland Gold Rush story. So if you're very well versed in our history already, the first half of this presentation is not necessarily meant to you, but we'll get to some good current updates at the end of the program. I want to start by saying, first, thanks to Justin and Terry and everybody else who's helped us set up this event. And thank you very much for everybody who has signed up to attend and to participate. Do get those questions in to Justin while the session is going on as they occur to you. I've asked Justin not to interrupt me too many times during the course of the presentation, but to save those Q&As or the Qs anyways, for the end of the slide deck. I will, in all likelihood, make some forward-looking statements during the course of the next 20 or 25 minutes of presentation, and possibly during 10 to 20 minutes of questions and answers at the end. So take those for what they're worth. Any beliefs we express today are based on the best information available to us today, but things do change as they always do, and so keep that in mind as we move forward down the road. So who are Gander Gold? We have the single largest, or the largest single company claim position on the island of Newfoundland. And for any Newfoundlanders or Newfoundland and Labradorians out there, I know the name of the province is Newfoundland and Labrador. I'm going to use the word Newfoundland to refer to the province over the course of the next 40 or 45 minutes, because it's on the island and not up in Labrador that our project areas are located. On the island of Newfoundland, we have some 2,259 square kilometers of claims that we've acquired through a number of option agreements, starting in 2020 with Vulcan Minerals and later with Sean Ryan and Rhinewood Exploration. So we've put together a large package. Our ownership structure is quite tight when you consider and we have in a slide or two here, have the actual numbers. When you consider that Sassy Gold and Eric Sprott own a little better than half of the outstanding shares in the company, the public float is quite limited, quite tight, and we think that bodes well for share price upside in the future as we develop some of these projects on the island. And you can see on the left-hand side here, one of the other highlights, 15 kilometers from the Keats zone at Newfound Gold's Queensway project. That refers to the location of the Gander North project. Our Gander North project is about 15 kilometers away from the Keats zone. We'll get into that a little more later on in the deck here. The Mount Peyton project actually borders the Queensway project for quite a distance. And our Gander South claims are quite close to the southern part of the Queensway project and the eastern pond area, where Newfound Gold have been having some more recent success in identifying gold down in the southern range of the Gander Gold Belt. So we have a great land position, big, strategically located project areas. We have a partnership with Sean Ryan and Ground Truth Exploration, where we're using a proven methodology to hunt for those economic gold deposits in Newfoundland that more of the world should be aware of than they are at the moment, for sure. In terms of capital structure, this is as of last week on September 14th. You can see we have 91.5 million shares outstanding, a little over half of which are owned by Sassy Gold and Eric Sprott, both of whom have been holding their positions since the very early days of Gander Gold back a couple of years ago, which originally started as a spinout from Sassy Gold. Sassy Gold went to Newfoundland originally looking for a year-round second project to complement their Eskay Camp project, and it ended up that the scale of the land package that was acquired in Newfoundland was such that it warranted having its own marquee, and that's how Gander Gold came into existence originally. Here you can see some of the folks who are leading our exploration team. My background, I grew up in New Brunswick on the east coast of Canada, in Bathurst, New Brunswick, which is home of the world famous VMS zinc mine, the Brunswick mine, of course, which in its heyday was the largest underground zinc mine in the world. I worked as a student, started underground at a place called Heath Steel Mines in the Miramichi, New Brunswick, cleaning latrines and working in an exploration office in a different part of the summer, restaking old claim lines and hauling core and cutting core and doing all that sort of stuff, and worked through 5 summers as a summer student in the industry, operating equipment underground, mobile and fixed equipment, and went to work for Inco in Sudbury when I finished school. Spent 2 years in Sudbury, moved to Thompson, Manitoba, and worked my way up the first support function ladder, and then went down across and worked my way up the operations ladder until in 2015, I was made the head of Vale's Manitoba operations in Thompson and vice president of Vale Canada, which consisted of, in Thompson, 3 underground mines, surface quarry, and fully integrated processing, mill, smelter, refinery. So everything from exploration to reclamation, I had the privilege of being responsible for in Thompson, with an annual budget somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 million US, and just under 1,900 full-time persons working at that plant. So lots of background. My whole life has been in mining, and I really wouldn't want to be working anywhere else. Ian Fraser has many decades of experience in gold exploration, gold and uranium, and some base metals work as well. Certainly an expert in his field, has participated in the discovery and development of multiple economic gold deposits throughout North and South America. Sean Ryan is probably Canada's best well-known prospector, and it was from Sean and some of his staking activity, and then the degree to which he and I played off one another, that our land package took on the scale that it has in Newfoundland back a couple of years ago. Isaac Phage is the chap who runs Ground Truth Exploration, whom we have contracted to execute our program on the ground in Newfoundland for the last couple of years. That really allowed us to hit the ground running without having to set up a whole bunch of infrastructure from scratch, without having to do a whole bunch of hiring on our own from scratch. Ground Truth and Sean Ryan and Isaac had been in the area for some time, and already had that framework in place, that foundation in place, that allowed us to hit the ground running in Newfoundland a couple of years ago. Some of the rest of the team, Mike Middleton has worked with us for quite a few years now with our group of companies. Mike leads our prospecting and camp building, camp management team out for Sassy Gold in the SK camp during the summers, and we're lucky to have him and his team, having gone out to Newfoundland a few times now to prospect and hunt for gold on the island. You have a couple of our directors, Kate McLaughlin, Terry Coughlin. You can read about their bios here, both very long, successful track records in the industry. And in the background, the back office work, the writing of technical reports and those sorts of things, is handled by Roniker McKenzie out of Sudbury, Ontario. So a great team. You can see a comment here from Sean on how he's hunting with a sniper rifle rather than a machine gun. We employ this ground truth drones to drills process, which has seen us go out and run very large regional soil programs. Gander Gold has run what we believe to be the largest soil sampling programs in the history of Newfoundland, having taken some 40,000 samples over the last couple of seasons on the island. And so we've used that geochemistry along with the historic data that's available from past explorers, past producers, from the Provincial Geological Survey, in lake seds and soil geochemistry, rock geochemistry, along with the structural data that was available, to focus in on the areas we wanted to stake and acquire, and the work we wanted to do to follow up on those most promising hits. And so that has led us now to the point where we are running our first ever drill program in Newfoundland this summer. So here again, it's a bit of an advertisement for Ground Truth Exploration here on this slide. You can read about their drone to drills methodology. It certainly has worked for a number of other explorers over the years, and is paying good dividends for us over the first couple of years of our programs in Newfoundland now. So why is Newfoundland experiencing this gold rush, and what is it all about? Again, not nearly enough people are paying attention to or appreciate fully yet the significance of what's happening in central Newfoundland right now. The likes of Marathon Gold with their nearly 5 million ounce and counting deposit at Valentine, Newfound Gold and the Fosterville style discovery, same age, by the same geological age, by the way, and looks very similar. That type of discovery is globally significant in the industry, and we believe that the structural corridors in Newfoundland, this sort of repeated series of southwest to northeast fractures, basically, that run diagonally across the island, that result from tectonic collisions that happened many, many eons ago, and then were then flushed with gold-bearing fluids approximately 420 million years ago, give or take 20 million years, which is a speck of time in the geological timeline. We believe that there are large swaths of the island of Newfoundland which are enriched with gold, and that there will be many economic gold deposits discovered and developed over the coming decade or decades. And so it's a great time to be in at the front end of this gold rush, and having established the size of the land position that Gander Gold has been able to acquire, we are in a very favorable position for those developments as things move forward, as the interpretation, the understanding, the reinterpretation of Newfoundland geology has been developing over the last 7 or 8 years. And as it continues to do so, every discovery that's made, every non-discovery that's made for that matter by other companies, helps the rest of us get a better, more full picture of what's going on geologically on the island. And we all stand on those shoulders of those who've come before us. So every year we're learning new things about Newfoundland geology and applying those to the work that we are doing. In terms of infrastructure on the island, there is abundant green hydro-generated electricity available on the island. There's a network of high voltage transmission lines that absolutely crisscrosses the island. There are a number of hydro stations, generating stations on the interior of the island, and these transmission lines that go out to some of the population centers down in St. John's or out in on the west coast, around Corner Brook and other places, result from the network of pulp and paper mills that used to exist more on the interior of the island, but aren't using that electricity now. Results from the developments up in Labrador, where some of that electricity comes to the island. And so there is abundant power available on the island to power mining and milling activities moving forward. Of course, mining activities moving forward, anybody who's developing a mining project today and is not planning on making full use of electric rather than diesel equipment is a fool. So that is the way of the world, and that will be the way we look at things when we get to that point in the project development timeline. And certainly mills, the spinning of mills and the running of crushers has always consumed a fair bit of power. So the good news is there's lots of power available, even though it's an island. There is lots of that. There are lots of roads and trails that run throughout the island, be those logging roads or the transmission lines themselves, or just even quad trails out to the thousands and thousands and thousands of cabins that exist all across the island. Access is very good. There are lots of accommodations available in towns and cities across the island, lots of suppliers, lots of service providers, and that's been increasing. We've seen with the increase in exploration activity on the island over the last couple of years that multiple new assay prep labs and assay facilities have started to be established on the island, which is great news for hopefully quickening the pace of assay returns over the next couple of years. And of course, the best thing about Newfoundland and Labrador is its people. And there certainly is a mining familiar, mining positive, mining knowledgeable workforce on the island, many of whom for the last several decades have been flying in and out of there. And you see the population growth around the airports at Deer Lake and Gander. And that fly in, fly out culture is certainly responsible for some of that. And so there are lots of miners living on the island, even if there haven't been that many operating mines in Newfoundland over the years. So there's certainly a skilled, abundant workforce there, in addition to all of the other great sort of physical and fixed infrastructure that exists in Newfoundland. Of course, on the island, you're not ever really very far away from a tidewater port, and that's a great thing for those of us who deal in the shipping of concentrates and bulk materials around the world. You're always close to either an established deep water, year-round tidewater harbor, or a location where there's a port that's maybe less developed but could be upgraded for use for that purpose. So just another tick in the project management checklist in Newfoundland's favor. And then the jurisdiction, population, government support is really as good as you will find anywhere, I believe, around the world. The Fraser Institute listed Newfoundland and Labrador as its number 4 most desirable mining jurisdiction this past May. Certainly the provincial government with the JEA program that provides financial support to small exploration companies, to the very expert, very knowledgeable, well-funded, well-resourced, not that I'm sure they'd probably say they could always use a little more, but the Geological Survey and the Department of Mines in the province is really well set up in terms of expertise, local knowledge, information systems, the library of available historic data, the map staking system, the timeliness with which they turn around permit applications is really the best in Canada, and certainly competes on a global level with anywhere I've seen. So you have an historically underexplored province, which for many decades had its mineral resources tied up in a sort of an oligopoly that very much limited outside access to exploration in the province. And then there were some booms and busts through the Norandas and others of the world, turning and burning through a bunch of targets in the late 80s. And then all of those majors decided to bring their exploration work in-house. Flow through collapsed, Bre-X happened. I mean, there were a series of unfortunate events that have really kept Newfoundland underexplored over the decades. And over this past 8 years or so, there's been this realization, this epiphany as to what is really going on geologically in Newfoundland with the success of Marathon Gold and NFG and others like us who are coming along behind them with speed. And so the world is starting to take notice that there is something really special happening in Newfoundland. So here's a view of some of the major claim blocks on the island. You can see Gander Gold's properties are numbered and highlighted in yellow here. You have the Gander North property over here, which basically starts at the fence line, the north fence line of the Gander International Airport, and runs for some 40 kilometers or so north of there. The Mount Peyton property here is quite a large piece of ground. It sits directly in between where the Newfound Gold Keats zone discovery is right here, that you can literally see from the Trans-Canada Highway that bisects the Queensway project, and the Sokoman Moosehead discovery, which is just over here on the west side of our Mount Peyton ground. So certainly rich ground. The Mount Peyton property is made up of this intrusion surrounded by gabbros, which may have actually served as the regional heat engine in the mobilization, remobilization of much of the regional mineralization. So that is definitely a very good postal code to be in, and we'll see that a little bit later on a Mount Peyton slide. Here you have the BLT project. It's not named after the sandwich, but rather the Botwood, Lawrencetown, Thwart Island claim blocks, so the BLT. We've been working, my apologies, I have a twitchy mouse finger. We've been working most intensely on Thwart Island and did a bit of RAB drilling there this year. A couple of smaller blocks down here, 6 and 7, are Little River and Hermitage. They are on this flexure here, which is dominated by CanStar and their Golden Bay project, where they've had some very good early success in their exploration work, and we have some similar geology and structures running across our blocks down there. Last but certainly not least is Cape Ray 2, which is sits right between the Cabot Fault. Actually, this fault has a number of different names. It's the Cabot down here. Some people call it the Bayvert-Brompton line further to the north. Others call it the Long Range Fault throughout. But anyways, the Cabot Long Range Bayvert-Brompton Fault runs right through here on the sort of north side of our Cape Ray 2 project. And on the south side, you have what ends up being the Valentine. It's the Cape Ray Fault here, but it's the Valentine shear zone up here where Marathon Gold's almost 5 million ounce deposit is found. So again, this is the point at where those two major structures come closest together, and we identified through the course government mag data that was available what we thought were some secondary cross-cutting structures here, which is good news in Newfoundland, where the Appleton Fault zone through the Queensway project here for Newfound Gold and Lab Gold and exploits has been making a lot of news. But you really get into it, a lot of the gold, most of the gold they've been finding is sort of offset and in the secondary and tertiary structures that come off of those main systems. And so we're very encouraged by our proximity to those primary systems and the degree to which we've been able to successfully identify and now test with the RAB drill some of those secondary structures that we see running on Newfoundland, predominantly from the southwest to the northeast. Here we see some of the, well, here you can quantify the opportunity that exists on the island. So you have Newfound Gold, who have yet to put out a resource estimate for their Queensway project, with a market cap that's about $1 billion and a share price that is half of what it was not so long ago. So now this is certainly a special discovery, and it is not nearly the only one that will be made on the island over the coming years. We believe in the regional potential of the island and of this Gander area specifically. And you're starting to see that play out, where Newfound Gold now is doing more work, publishing more about the work that they're doing in the South Queensway range, which is where our Gander South claims, Lizard Pond claims can be found. They're publishing more results that they're getting back from drilling at the Iceberg Zone, which is a more easterly trending sort of offshoot from the Appleton Zone here. And when we look at that and we look at our LiDAR images and LiDAR data and mag data for the area, it appears that some of those structures may actually carry on from Iceberg, for example, across to the east and right across our property. And that structure, for one, forms one of the areas where we've been soil sampling, and we've had good success with that, and where we've started to RAB drill, and we see in the XRF data, which we're not comfortable publishing, but is good for on-the-ground decision-making as the program is ongoing. And in the televiewer data that gives us lots of good information about the structure that we're seeing in the barrel of the hole that's drilled, we believe we've succeeded in intersecting a number of likely gold-bearing structures in this area. And at Gander North, for example, we've only to date tested 5 of the 14 target zones at Gander North alone. So we think our methodology is working quite well in this early stage of development. We're very enthusiastic, very excited about the regional potential here in and around Gander and elsewhere on the island. And we believe it's this gold rush that's happening in Newfoundland is still in the very early days, and we'll see a number of economic discoveries made and developed over the coming years. So I think I've spoken somewhat to these projects in the Gander area. RAB drilling, I should back up a notch and explain. The drilling we've done this year is not diamond drilling. For anybody who's not familiar with it, diamond drilling gives you a core of rock that you can pull out, cut in half, have a very close look at, and send that actual half or quarter barrel of the hole off for assay. What RAB drilling, or rotary air blast drilling, does is essentially drill a dry hole, and it generates a large volume of powder and chips and cuttings that come out of the hole. You sort of homogenize that, you mix it up and sort it through a pretty rudimentary mixing and cutting device, and then you take your little sample from that and ship it off to the assay lab. So the gold values that you'll see in the assays are not necessarily equivalent to what you might get in a high grade interval in diamond drilling, where you can take and publish a nice picture of that. But what it does is give you a pretty quick, pretty affordable means of doing first testing on these soil geochemistry anomalies that we've identified, where we have either high-grade gold in the soils, or high-grade base metals in the soils, or high-grade pathfinder elements like arsenic and antimony, tellurium in the soils, or a combination of all of those, which we have in some cases, and allows you to go and fairly quickly turn and burn a shallow 60-meter hole per day as you're running the kind of program we ran this past summer so far at Gander North, Ward Island, and Lizard Pond. So if we look at Gander North, here are the 5 test areas that we've identified, or that we tested rather, with the RAB drill this past summer. There are 9 other, as you can see, quite large areas sitting on or about these northeast trending significant primary and secondary structures along this mag signature, which was previously either unidentified or not paid very much attention by earlier explorers in the area. This runs parallel to the Gander Gold Belt, the Grub line, or the Gander River Ultramafic Belt line, which is what Grub stands for, runs along the western side of this property over here. And so we think we may have identified an entirely new belt here if things continue to play out the way they have so far. The gold in soil values here are very impressive. Over in this Viking block, you can, just in the back, you can see some of the values there that are 1,100, 1,400 parts per billion gold. So that's 1.1, 1.4 grams gold per ton in the soils that we were taking. So, if that was, it's not everywhere in the world you can go and find gold values in soils where you identify dozens or hundreds of similar results in the soil anomalies that you're identifying, where the glaciers have moved this material very, very little from their origin source, unlike in other parts of the country where it might be many hundreds of meters or kilometers removed from its source, where a plume will spread out because of glaciation. In Newfoundland, that tends not to be the case. There's not a lot of soil until development, and where there is, these anomalies tend to show up quite close to their source. And so, there are some people in the world, if you saw 1 to 6 grams gold in the soils, you'd haul in a backhoe and a sluice and start sluicing the stuff. But we're looking for a little bit of a bigger prize, and so that's encouraging to us that those values are what they are. We've run VLF, ground VLF lines over some of these structures close to where these soil results are. That's helped us target the RAB drill holes, and that's the work we've been doing this past summer. So 28 holes were drilled at Gander North. 3 more were drilled at Thwart Island, where the methodology was exactly the same. And you can see here we had a 5.94 gram gold per ton soil sample, among some other very good, very impressive numbers. Basically anything over 20 to 25 grams per ton is is, well, in this case, anything over 23 parts per billion, is considered at the 99th percentile of all the samples that were taken. So you can see the quality and the scale of the soil anomalies that we've identified from 2021 to 2022 and the work we were doing there, and now in 2023 that we're testing with the RAB drill. Down in Lizard Pond, we drilled 3 more holes. We had not previously published any results from these few claims at Lizard Pond. You can see here there's about a 1 kilometer structure that we're targeting here. The collar locations of the 3 RAB holes are indicated around the soil and some rock geochem prospecting results that are indicated here. Again, these are claims that are very close to the Dog Bay line, which forms the western side of the Gander Gold Belt, and are close to the Gander South region of the Queensway project that Newfound Gold has, and their eastern pond target, where I think they're running about a 10,000 meter diamond drill program down in the Gander South region as we speak. So lots of potential down there too. Now, moving forward, we have more work to do, of course. We're in the early stages. We are getting RAB results back. We are getting assay results back. We're getting the televiewer data back. We don't have nearly all of it just yet. And so, no single individual result we believe is material or prudent to publish. We want to make sure we have the whole picture from these assay results and can put the story together and understand what it is we're looking at, and then plan the next phase of work. And so we're doing that with respect to additional RAB drilling. We have yet to test the significant soil anomalies and structures that we've identified at the 2 major zones at Mount Peyton, Goldenrod and Golden Horseshoe. The Goldenrod is a number of northeast trending structures with soil anomalies, golden soil anomalies overlaying them that are very close to the Sokoman Moosehead discovery. And then down at the Golden Horseshoe target at Mount Peyton, that's an area where there's a full nose that is of regional scale and again has tens, not meters, but tens of kilometers of potential strike. I think that one is about 22 linear kilometers in length, that structure that is overlain with gold and soil anomalies. So lots of work to do yet for RAB drilling at Mount Peyton. 9 of 14 areas at Gander North have yet to be tested, and then we'll get into identifying the most significant of those targets that warrant diamond drilling, and get into that as soon as we're able to do that. On into next year, it'll be quite an aggressive program we expect, with diamond drilling of those priority targets, possibly some additional RAB drilling depending on how much we get done before the end of this calendar year. And then we've gone into a process of rationalizing some of our claims. Mount Peyton is a good example where, it's such a large project that approximately half of those claims have distinguished themselves with gold and soil anomalies being present on them. And the other half, we can probably afford to do something different with them, which will reduce by half our carrying cost of those claims. And in the Mount Peyton example, it actually ends up essentially quote unquote, buying us an extra year of statutory assessment credit with the government. So that can help us manage the priority of our spending. We're not going to be bound as much by statutory assessment requirements, but actually spend money in the right places at the right time where it's most appropriate to do so. And we'll manage our assessment and exploration expenditures thusly, along with the carrying costs of those properties. Further on down the road, we'll see which projects we carry on further down the development pipeline. That'll be based on drilling results and exploration results as we move forward. I do personally believe, and I know it's an ongoing topic of conversation among the companies that are operating on the island. There will be some consolidation of companies and or projects down the road. The island went from, the province went from having just a handful of exploration companies working on it a few years ago to having better than 50 operating out there now. That number will come back to earth a little bit as things play out. Some projects distinguish themselves more positively than others. Projects that are next to one another get combined. Companies that it makes sense to join forces do so. And then eventually, as intermediate producers and majors get interested, as some of the deposits get big enough to justify their involvement, then you'll see some interest from some of those intermediate and major producers. You'll see their presence start to increase on the island down the road. So they have a fairly predictable gold majors have a fairly predictable minimum sort of level of interest at around 5 million ounces. So, as the Marathon Golds and Newfound Golds and those of us who are aiming to join that conversation over the next few years develop their projects, I'm sure you'll see that spotlight from some of the bigger fish start to get shone on some of those projects. So that's it. I'm surprised Justin didn't start tapping his watch 15 minutes ago. That's the overview of Gander Gold, why Newfoundland is such an attractive jurisdiction, what we're doing there, what we've been up to over the last little while, and hopefully my enthusiasm for the island, for the province, for the people, and for the economic and geological potential there is obvious and a little more than a little bit infectious. So I think Justin has some questions for me that he's going to try and stump me with here for the next little while.
Yeah, I should have bet you a fancy cup of Vancouver coffee that you would have gone over your 20 minutes, but we're good. There's more people than when we started, so that's always a great sign. Maybe go to full screen with us, Mark, so people can see you. I will remind everybody, find the Q&A box on the bottom, submit your questions. We'll get to them real time. We'll probably close up exactly on an hour, I would think here, so appreciate it. We had some questions initially about proximity, but I think he answered it. At Mount Peyton bordering NFG's properties. How close are Mount Peyton and Gander North to the town of Gander itself?
Well, Gander North is quite close to town. I mean, it's you don't go very far outside of town until you're just at the north edge of the airport, and you're basically driving along. I forget the name of that road that runs there, but right outside of town. So on Mount Peyton is, if you drive from Gander over to Grand Falls, Windsor, if you look on the right, you see the Mount Peyton Hotel and Conference Center. If you look to the left, you see Mount Peyton sticking up out of the ground. So it's, as you head down the Bay d'Espoir Highway there, it's on your left-hand side. It's on the east of the Bay d'Espoir Highway as you head south. It's right there. Great access right across the province for most of those areas. There's not nearly as much requirement for helicopter support as there is in if you were working in the far north or more mountainous, more remote regions. Even though it is an island, it really doesn't feel like it. One bit of proximity I didn't mention a while ago was our Cape Ray 2 project. It's right next to Matador Mining's Cape Ray project, where they have an 840,000 ounce resource that it's at about 2 grams per ton, right at or very near surface. 95% of the resource is within 200 meters of surface or something like that. And so that, there are Hope Brook not far away has almost 1 million ounce resource. There's certainly lots of historic production up in the Bay Verte, Greenberry area with a number of past producers up there. So, there is a long history of mining on the island. And I think there are handfuls of 1 million ounce plus deposits to be had. And I think there are a number of much more significant deposits than that to be had somewhere along those major structures that, again, repeat fairly regularly from southwest to northeast across the island. I see Roy K has his hand up, if you can see that, Justin.
Can't see hands up.
Oh,
Is
okay.
he, Roy, have you
Getting
submitted
a hand
a,
up, but I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it. Anyways,
oh, I see. Hey, Roy, type a question into the Q&A
type a
box.
question in so Justin can see it.
Yeah, sorry. That's funny. Um, good. So we haven't released results. Can you comment more on your early indications from the RAB portion of the drilling this summer?
Yeah. So what we do when we drill a rab hole, one part of the sample gets bagged and tagged and sent off for the to the assay lab. Another, we'll grab some chips out of each rod. So each rod is 1.52 meters or about 5 feet in length. So that's the interval over which you're getting each sample in the rab context. We build a chip tray that shows, the representative geology as you go down the barrel of the hole from surface to usually about 60 meters of depth. Can be a little more, a little less, depending on where you are. And then a different part of the sample we bag and we shoot it with a handheld XRF device, which gives you readings on pathfinder elements and base metals and all sorts of wonderful information. But it does absolutely nothing for you in terms of giving a gold grade. So you have to wait for the assays to get the gold grades back. But what you get is essentially an in the field, pretty good indication as to whether you're in the right neighborhood or not, right? If you have a whole bunch of arsenic and antimony and tellurium, you're on a structure that you know is overlain by a pretty serious gold anomaly. If you have the televiewer images that show you've intersected, and the chip tray that shows you've intersected, depending on where you are, a quartz vein or ultramafic rocks that maybe are a little heavier in base metals, which can be the case depending on where you are. The geology is not the same everywhere on every square inch of the island. You get a pretty good idea of what you're looking at. You just don't want to stick it too far out there and start saying too much until you have the actual lab certificates in front of you. So we're at that point. We have some of the assay results back, many more yet to come. And as we put that more fulsome picture together, then we'll be able to speak a little more intelligently and in my case, hopefully succinctly on the subject.
You don't run the labs, but there are people asking, thank you, Cameron, like when might you expect all of the assay results to be received? Say.
Yeah, I always wish I had them yesterday, no matter when you ask me, and I gave up a long time ago assigning dates to processes that are out of my control because I've been made to look the fool by that previously. So, we'll get them back hopefully soon. It has taken a while longer than we were hoping. It always takes a while longer than the assay labs marketing guy says it's going to. And we get them when we get them, right? When we are bound to put out material information we believe to be material in a timely manner. So that's what we try to do.
Yeah, lots of questions about potential drill plans based on field observations. How have you been able to? How might it have impacted your view of potential targets, maybe excluding targets? Can you speak to just?
Well, this is the challenge we're faced with, is that this will sound ridiculous, but the only manner in which Newfoundland has surprised us so far is the abundance and quality of targets that it keeps producing. So we took quite a large land position originally, thinking that, to use a fishing analogy, we were casting a great big net. We were going to cast it as wide as we could and then start to narrow it in, which we're doing now with the claim rationalization process. And that in there, we would give ourselves a greater chance of success, right? The batting average in this industry is like 2%, not 200, like the bottom of your batting order, on a baseball team, but 2%. And so you want to have as many targets as you can to begin with. The challenge we literally are running into is that we have more good anomalies, more good targets than we expected to have. And that requires a couple of things. One, more time to do the work. and two, more money to do the work, more money to keep up the properties, more money to actually do the assessment on that many more targets. And so there will come a point at which we will have to start choosing between our children and start parting off probably parts or whole claim blocks where, not that they don't warrant follow up or they don't have geological merit or potential, but we just will have more than we can work with at some point. And so, we're getting close to that point now. I think that presents an opportunity for us in our treasury moving forward to look for deal making opportunities that will help us bolster the treasury without taking on dilution from an equity placement. So we're I expect over this winter we will get more focused on developing those kind of opportunities. The gold junior sector being what it has been over the last little while, it happens there are more sellers than buyers at the moment, so it's not necessarily the best time possible to be looking to parcel things up and move them out. But there's always a market, and we think the gold juniors will turn around in 24 and should have a good year. All the fundamentals are there, and we think 24 should be a good year, and that may present some deal making opportunities for us.
Good answer. I think that answered a couple questions right there. Between our rotary air blast and diamond drilling, can you give some context on the comparison on pricing? You mentioned the cost.
Yep. So we've been spending our program. It cost about $350,000 a month to run it, and so we did 2 months of drilling. The crew did 2 4-week rotations to do the amount of work we did. We have at least that much more to do at Mount Peyton if and when we do undertake that. And so because of the scale of the goldenrod and the golden horseshoe targets, so that's about the rate we're running at. We also had a prospect in Mike Middleton and company were out there prospecting for us, and so we had some of that work and some ground VLF and ground penetrating radars that we use to get more resolution, better resolution on the structures that we are targeting with the drill. They're quite short holes, right? So you can't just back up hundreds of meters and zing a 45-degree hole and hope for the best. You got to be pretty on it when you're only putting 60 meters worth of rods down into the ground. So we do some GPR, ground penetrating radar, to judge the profile of the bedrock and the depth of the till and soil, or the bog, depending on where you are on the island, and ground VLF lines to assess the pretty precise location of the structure we're targeting, and then go from there. So there are some other costs that will come into that $350 a month for the 2 months of RAB drilling that we did. And our SG&A is about $40 a month, $50 a month, depending on the time of year. So that's what we've been running. The financial year and the calendar year are two different things. Our year ends in June 30th, so it's we'll keep running the program as we can this year and total that up at the end. So far, we've spent about $900,000 this calendar year.
And can you drill year round in Newfoundland?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's a great thing about it. But Central does get some snow, more than the Avalon Peninsula and down in St. John's. But Central does get some snow, and then it sticks around for a little longer in the bush in Central Newfoundland than in some other parts of the province. Western Newfoundland gets a little more snow than that yet. That's where the province's one significant ski hill is at Marble Mountain, for good reason. And but you can drill year round. If you're somewhere where you require helicopter support, the weather can be pretty snaggly depending on where you are, and so you don't necessarily get a whole lot of great flying days down at Cape Ray, down in the southwest corner of the province, down towards Port aux Basques, for example. The weather there, if you have to do a bunch of flying, it's definitely best to plan it for June, July, August, because the fog and the wind and the rain and the cloud is pretty ubiquitous for the rest of the year. But yeah, you can drill year round.
And how about costs, like operational drill costs?
Yeah, they'd be about the
versus...
same. So for diamond drilling, right, be about the same as a mainland project, essentially. Less than, if you were operating up in way up far northern range of Nunavik, or up in Baffin Island, or out in the Rockies or the coastal mountains on the west coast, and you're remote. You have to build a camp. You have to you put multiple hours on the helicopter every single day. That adds up in a hurry. Newfoundland was more comparable to Sudbury, Timmins, New Liskeard, Thompson kind of a camp where it's road accessible, good local accommodations, and food and suppliers and all that kind of stuff available.
Everybody, please, we do have, let's keep Mark for another 5. Oh, we have them.
Roy's got his hand up again. So Roy, okay, please
Roy, type it in. There's a question and answer box.
Type in your question to Justin on the Q&A.
Yeah, sorry, Roy, we can't hear you. It's set up so that people can submit questions anonymously. So type them into the question box.
I wrecked his
oh, shoot. Yeah.
Anonymity. Sorry about that. Okay.
That's true.
What's next?
Question. You mentioned, you showed on the charts, BLT, Gander North, Gander South. Do you expect next year exploration is going to focus on those 3, or are you going to look at maiden drilling on the other projects?
So far, the best success, mind you, it's because it's where we've done the most work, but the best success has been at Gander North, Mount Peyton, and Fort Island. So those are definitely on the table for further development. The Little River and Hermitage blocks down further south, closer to CanStar's Golden Bay project, they're down towards sort of St. Albans kind of part of the province down there. They're smaller, so they don't require as much work to sort of keep the claims in good standing. So, we'll have to decide what we want to do with those. Cape Ray has a lot of potential. We really like the 3 target zones we've identified at Cape Ray: the Sou'wester, the Doughball Jog, and the Cabot zones have a lot of potential. And, it's just the reality of it is that's a little further afield for us. And it's one of those cases where, things have exceeded our expectations in terms of the quantity and quality of the targets that have been generated. So yes, I think we're on the right track with the projects in that Gander area, where Gander Gold, named such for a reason, is focused. And some of those ones that are a little further afield, those are opportunities for us to look for sort of alternative plans and opportunities as to what we can do with those.
Excellent. Any more questions? Please keep them coming. Here's a good one. How do you feel about your current valuation?
I think our current share price, our current market cap, is more reflective of the very general weakness, very general malaise that has been felt in the junior gold market for most of this year, and doesn't necessarily have to do with anything at all with the potential and the value that is presented by Gander Gold. We really believe we have good projects in good locations that are exceeding our expectations so far, and we have a good team, good ground in a good location. What more could you ask for? The valuation will come around the current share price. If we're trading in around the 10-cent level, I mean, that just multiplies the opportunity for anybody who's new to the story now and getting in. Right? You didn't miss out on any early rounds of financing, because you can buy it now in the market for as good or better a price than those of us who helped found the company paid in the first place. So this is a good time to be jumping on, and it'll come along as either we or somebody else come up with a new discovery in Newfoundland and really start to provide the evidence for the regional hypothesis that Sean Ryan and I and others have been developing and building and promoting for the last few years. You'll start to see that attention and that heat get turned up, I think, for sure.
So thank you. Well, for everybody, if you had technical issues, challenges with your questions, please submit them directly to us. So our head of investor relations is Terry Bramall, Terry at gandergold.com. Send your questions through. We will be recording this session. Sorry, just been recorded. We'll be processing it this afternoon and sharing it by tomorrow. So everybody, thank you so much. We had more people. Everybody stayed for the full presentation, Mark. So great job.
That's great.
Um, yeah, and thanks everybody for joining. Mark, please take us away. Great job, though.
Sure. Well, thank you to our newly minted comms director, Justin, for for giving me the prod to host this session. I do hope he will keep my feet to the fire and help us make these kinds of sessions more frequent, so that we can have sort of more frequent, less intense points of contact with our current shareholders and investors and long-term supporters and anybody who's new to the story that we can bring along. We really do. Our whole team really is excited about the projects that we have in Newfoundland and the early success that we've had, the tremendous success that some of our neighbors are having, and there is very definitely more to come. There will be multiple economic gold deposits identified on the island of Newfoundland over the next few years, and we certainly aim to be a big part of that story.